I did not do this.
The first scream didn't come from Breanna. It came from the patient in room 317, a scream so raw, so sudden, it sliced through the quiet night shift like a blade. The fluorescent hallway lights flickered once, then steadied, casting long shadows across the tiled floors. Breanna froze mid-stride, her heart thudding against her ribs. She had heard pain before, she worked in healthcare, but this sound wasn't pain. It was terror. She dropped the supply clipboard and sprinted toward the room. Inside, chaos swallowed everything. A man thrashed violently on the bed, tubes ripping free, monitors shrieking warnings. A nurse tried restraining him, yelling for help. Breanna grabbed the man's shoulders, speaking softly, "Sir, look at me. You're safe. You're safe, I promise you're safe." But his eyes weren't seeing her. They were seeing something that didn't exist. A shadow. A face. A memory. She'd seen this kind of reaction before, but never this extreme. And never from a patient whose chart showed nothing that should have caused a neurological crash. Something was wrong. Deeply wrong. Before she could ask the nurse what happened, Dr. Meredith Hargrove stormed into the room. Her expression was carved from ice. She scanned the monitors, eyes narrowing. "What did you do?" she demanded. Breanna blinked. "Me? Don't lie to me. This patient was stable an hour ago." "He still was when I checked on him," Breanna insisted. "I haven't administered anything tonight." Hargrove snapped her head toward the nurse. "Is that true?" The nurse hesitated, a hesitation pregnant with fear. Hargrove's gaze sharpened. "Is that true?" The nurse looked at the floor. "I don't know who last recorded the dosage." Breanna felt her stomach drop. "Dosage? What dosage?" she whispered. No one answered. Not with words. But when she glanced at the patient's chart on the tablet, her breath caught. Someone had added a sedative dose under her login credentials. A dose powerful enough to trigger exactly what was happening. Her throat closed. "I didn't record this," she said louder now, fighting the panic crawling up her spine. "This isn't my entry." Dr. Hargrove's lips curled into a cold, satisfied smile. "A hunter spotting wounded prey." "Then explain it," she hissed. Breanna's lungs felt tight as if the room itself was shrinking. "My badge wasn't even near this hallway." "And yet," Hargrove interrupted, "your name is here. Which means you compromised patient safety." The accusation hit the room like a gunshot. The nurse flinched. The patient's screams faded into exhausted gasps. Breanna shook her head, too fast, too desperate. No, someone manipulated this. Look at the timestamp, I wasn't even." But Hargrove stepped closer, invading her space until Breanna could smell the sharp peppermint on her breath. "You think I don't know what you've been doing?" Hargrove whispered, voice low and venomous. "You think I haven't noticed you overstepping? You think I haven't seen you talking to families, comforting people like you're a nurse? You're a tech, Cole. Nothing more." Her words were soft. Her cruelty was not. Breanna opened her mouth, but the doctor lifted a finger, silencing her like a child. "You're done here." The hallway monitors continued beeping behind them, but Breanna couldn't hear them anymore. A dull roar filled her ears, the sound of her world collapsing in on itself. A guard stepped into the doorway. Then another. Breanna's pulse skyrocketed. "No, wait, you can't." "I didn't." "You put a patient at risk," Hargrove said. "There's nothing to discuss." Breanna backed away instinctively, but the wall found her before her voice did. Her breath came in short, trembling bursts. The guards edged closer, polite but firm, the kind of firm that meant, "We already know how this ends." Fear rushed through her bloodstream, cold and sharp. The kind of fear you feel when you're being punished for something you didn't do. The kind of fear that reminds you how small you are in systems built to crush people like you. "Please," Breanna begged, voice cracking. "Please check the security footage. Check the login record." "I didn't." Dr. Hargrove didn't blink. "I don't need footage. I need accountability." With those words she turned away. Dismissive. Triumphant. The guards reached for Breanna. A tear slipped free, the first one she'd allowed in years. And as they escorted her down the hallway, nurses watching but saying nothing, monitors echoing behind her like a broken heartbeat, something inside her shifted. A fracture. A awakening. The humiliation didn't crush her. It ignited something. Something dangerous. Something patient. Something that would one day turn all of this back on the person who tried to break her. Dr. Hargrove had just lit a fuse she didn't even know existed. And Breanna Cole was about to become the kind of woman people whispered about long after she left a room. The night didn't end when they walked Breanna out of the patient wing. It only changed shape. The guards escorted her through the dim staff corridor, their footsteps echoing like a verdict stamped into the floors. Every hallway felt colder than the last. Every face she passed, custodial staff, overnight nurses, the clerk at the supply desk, had the same expression: fear, avoidance, resignation. As if they already knew what this place did to people who challenged its hierarchy. As if they knew she wouldn't win. The glass door clicked shut behind her as she entered the back administrative lobby. The air was stale, the kind of stale that came from recycled AC and too many buried secrets. A security officer stood beside the exit, arms crossed. "Sit," he instructed. Breanna sat. Her hands trembled in her lap, and she forced them still, clasping them together until her knuckles ached. She wasn't a girl anymore. She wouldn't fall apart here. The receptionist, a thin woman with tired eyes, peered at her from behind the desk. Breanna hoped maybe she'd find sympathy there. But instead, the woman looked away quickly. As if eye contact itself could get her in trouble. A minute passed. Then 5. Then 10. Breanna's throat tightened. They're leaving me here on purpose. Letting fear sink in. Letting uncertainty gnaw its way through her. Just when she was about to stand, the door to HR opened. A man stepped out, someone Breanna had never seen before. Middle-aged, stiff posture, suit that didn't quite fit his frame. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at her fully. "Come with me." That's when she felt it, the shift. The subtle but unmistakable feeling that she wasn't a worker anymore. She was a problem. A liability. A file to be closed quietly. Inside the small HR office, he kept the fluorescent lights dim, the blinds half drawn. The desk was clutter-free. The room smelled like paper and disinfectant, like secrets kept airtight. He closed the door. "Breanna Cole," he said without looking at the file in his hand. "Patient incident. Chart tampering. Internal policy breach. Medication mismanagement." Her pulse hammered. "I didn't tamper with anything." He lifted a hand. "You'll have your chance to speak." He didn't let her speak. He simply continued, flipping through pages he clearly didn't need to read. "There was an unauthorized dosage recorded under your badge login at 12:47 a.m. I wasn't near that wing at that time," she insisted. "Check the hallway cams." His eyes lifted to hers, cold, flat, almost bored. "There was an outage," he said. "Footage is unavailable." The room tilted. "What do you mean an outage? Cameras don't just." "This isn't up for debate. It is if it's being used to accuse me of something I didn't do." The man leaned back slightly, exhaling with the irritation of someone who preferred compliance over truth. "Miss Cole, arguing will not help your situation. The doctor on duty witnessed the patient's state. The chart reflects your ID. And your behavior in the room was described as agitated." Her mouth opened in shock. "I wasn't agitated, I was trying to help. And nurses reported that you entered the room without being assigned to that patient. I was responding to a medical emergency." He closed the file as if that settled everything. "You'll be placed on administrative leave pending review. Badge access is suspended effective immediately." Her stomach heaved. "Review? When? With who?" "I need to defend myself. Further communication will be emailed." "And until then?" "Until then," he said, standing, "I suggest you take time to reflect on what professionalism looks like in your role." "Professiona?" Her anger rose so fast it made her dizzy. "You're firing me without firing me." His face remained unmoved. "Security will escort you to collect your belongings." A quiet war waged inside her chest. Disbelief, humiliation, and something sharper than grief. Something rising. Like rage. Not violent rage, righteous rage. The kind born when people in power decide the easiest story is the one where you're guilty. "Someone set me up," she whispered. "You're letting them." He didn't respond. He didn't have to. His silence was confirmation enough. When they escorted her back into the break room to grab her things, every conversation stopped. Just like earlier when she'd been dragged from room 317. Some staff pretended not to look. Some couldn't look away. A young CNA whispered, "Bree, I'm sorry," but her supervisor shot her a warning glare, silencing her instantly. Cowardice disguised as protocol. Breanna grabbed her backpack from the locker and zipped it with trembling fingers, her breaths short and shallow. Her throat burned from holding back everything she wanted to scream. What hurt wasn't the accusation. It was watching people she'd helped, people she'd protected during violent patient episodes, people she'd covered shifts for, act like they didn't know her. As if she were dangerous now. As if proximity alone could ruin them too. A guard touched her shoulder lightly. "We have to escort you out." The words soured in the air. Escort? Like she was a criminal. She swallowed hard, turned, and walked through the hallway with her back straight and her chin lifted. Shame burned through her, but pride kept her spine from folding. She didn't cry. Not until she reached the parking lot. Not until she saw her reflection in her car window, eyes filled with betrayal she still couldn't understand. Her hands shook so violently that she dropped her keys twice before managing to unlock the door. She slid inside and closed it, the silence pressing against her until she felt she might break. She rested her forehead against the steering wheel. And then the tears came, slow at first, then unstoppable. Tears for the job she'd given everything to. Tears for the lie that would follow her. Tears for how easily a black woman could be turned into a threat with one signature, one manipulated chart, one doctor's accusation. And under her sobs lived something else. A question. Why her? Why now? Why that patient? Something about the timing was wrong. Something about the chart was wrong. Something about Dr. Hargrove's reaction was too rehearsed, too confident, too quick. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a plan. A setup. A message. Breanna lifted her face from the steering wheel, tears streaking down her cheeks, breath still trembling. "I didn't do this," she whispered to the empty car. But somebody did. The night air outside the windows was still. The kind of stillness that followed storms, or warned of one coming. Breanna started the engine. She wasn't going home to cry herself to sleep. She wasn't going home to accept defeat. She was going home to think. To remember. To replay every moment until she found what didn't make sense. She didn't know it yet, couldn't know it, but the truth she was about to uncover would drag her deeper into a system far darker than a tampered chart. A system willing to ruin her because she'd gotten too close to something she didn't even know she'd seen. And the people who framed her? They had no idea that Breanna Cole wasn't the type to stay broken. Not forever. Not even for long. The storm rolled in long before the first drop of rain touched the ground. Breanna had felt it all day, an uneasy stirring in her chest, the sense that the truth had begun to shift beneath her feet. By evening, the whole town seemed to tense along with her. People whispered more quietly. Sidewalks emptied sooner than usual. Even the street lamps flickered like they sensed a disturbance that hadn't yet revealed itself. Breanna arrived home late from work, exhausted from another day spent fighting off Mr. Crane's smirking comments and the cold stares of his loyal board members. She set her bag down by the door, kicked off her shoes and leaned against the wall just to breathe. The apartment felt unusually still, and for a moment she simply stood there, listening to the soft hum of her refrigerator and the faint rumble of distant thunder. Her phone buzzed. A message from a number she didn't recognize. "Check your email. Now." Breanna stared at it for a long second. The hairs on her arms rose, though she couldn't explain why. She opened her laptop and logged in. A new email sat at the top of her inbox. No subject line, no sender name, just a single attachment. Her stomach tightened. She clicked. The file opened slowly, and when the images finally loaded, she froze. Photos. Dozens of them. All of them showing the evidence room at Crane's company. Rows of donated items, medical supplies, blankets, food, educational tablets, meant for underfunded communities. All of them relabeled with Crane's name and shipped to donors as if he had personally funded everything. The theft was massive. Systematic. Intentional. Breanna felt her throat close. Her pulse thundered in her ears. She scrolled and scrolled, every new image tearing open disbelief and replacing it with something heavier. And then she reached the last image. A screenshot of an internal memo. Her name was at the top. "If she becomes a problem, we have grounds to remove her. Prepare documentation." The room spun. Her breath hitched. Her fingers trembled so violently she had to grip the edge of the desk just to stay upright. They weren't just using her. They were planning to destroy her. She slammed the laptop shut, staggered back and pressed her hand to her forehead. She tried to breathe, tried to steady herself, but her entire body trembled. She knew what this meant. She knew who she was dealing with. Mr. Crane wasn't just a powerful CEO, he had friends, connections, political ties. People listened when he spoke, even when he lied. She paced her small living room in frantic circles. Her mind raced. Who sent the images? Was it a trap? Who else knew? What was she supposed to do now? Her phone buzzed again. This time a voice note. When she pressed play, she nearly dropped the device. It was Mr. Crane's voice, cold, low, impatient. "She's too curious. I don't like the questions she's asking. Handle it." Breanna clutched the phone to her chest. Tears threatened to spill, but she blinked them back. She didn't have the luxury of breaking down. Something was happening tonight, something calculated, something dangerous. A loud knock at the door made her jump. She turned toward it, heartbeat hammering. Another knock, louder this time. Her breath grew shallow. Breanna? It's Officer Mendez. We need to speak with you. Her knees nearly gave out. Officer Mendez. The same one who smiled too tightly whenever he stood beside Mr. Crane at community events. The same one who dismissed her harassment complaint without even pretending to care. She backed away from the door, shaking her head repeatedly. No, not tonight. The knocking continued, heavier now. Breanna Cole. Open the door. She felt like the walls were closing in on her. She looked toward the balcony, toward the back window, toward anywhere she might escape, but her body refused to move. Panic wrapped itself around her chest until she could barely breathe. Her phone buzzed once more. A new message. This time from Maya, her childhood friend. Don't open the door. They're trying to set you up. I'm on my way, stay inside. Breanna's breath caught. For a moment, relief flooded her, but the pounding on the door intensified, rattling the hinges. Miss Cole, this is your final warning. Tears filled her eyes. Every instinct inside her screamed. Run. Hide. Survive. She grabbed her laptop, her phone, her charger, and shoved them into her bag. Her hands moved faster than her thoughts, driven purely by instinct. She eased open the back window and climbed onto the fire escape just as the first forceful shove hit her front door. The metal of the fire escape felt icy under her feet as she descended, each step groaning loudly in the dark. The alley was dim, lit only by a flickering bulb overhead. She pulled her hood over her head and moved quickly, heart slamming against her ribs. Somewhere behind her, she heard her front door burst open. Voices spilled into the night. She's not here. Search the place. Check the back. She couldn't have gotten far. Breanna ducked behind a dumpster, pressing her hands over her mouth to quiet her gasps. Her whole body shook uncontrollably, but she forced herself to stay still. The footsteps grew louder, then faded, then returned again. She remained crouched there long after the voices drifted away, too afraid to move. A car horn beeped twice from the end of the alley. Breanna peeked around the dumpster. It was Maya's old silver sedan, engine running, passenger door open. Breanna sprinted toward it. Maya leaned across the seat, waving frantically. Get in, Bree. Hurry. Breanna jumped inside, slamming the door shut with trembling hands. Maya immediately sped off, her face tense with fear. What happened? Maya whispered, her voice barely steady. Breanna exhaled a shaky breath and collapsed back into the seat. They're trying to frame me, she said, her voice breaking. And I think they're willing to do anything to silence me. Maya tightened her grip on the steering wheel, eyes locked on the road. Then we don't hide, she said softly but with fire in her voice. We fight back. Breanna looked at her, really looked at her, and something inside her shifted. Fear didn't disappear, but it began to move aside. Just enough for something else to take its place. Determination. Quiet. Cold. Focused. Then we expose them, Breanna whispered. Maya nodded. We expose every single one of them. The storm finally broke, rain slamming against the windshield as the car disappeared into the night, carrying Breanna toward whatever truth waited next, and whatever danger would rise to meet her. Because now she understood something she hadn't fully grasped before. They came after her because they were afraid. And people in power only feared one thing. The truth in the hands of someone brave enough to use it. Rain hammered against the windshield as Maya's car sliced through the night. Breanna gripped the edge of her seat, her mind still spiraling, her heart still racing from the escape. In the silence between them, the world outside felt like it was holding its breath. Streetlights streaked through the rain, and every passing shadow made Breanna flinch. She kept replaying the images, the memo, the voice note, everything she had just seen. Each memory felt like a punch, and yet a strange calm began to settle over her. Not the calm of safety, but the calm of a woman who had discovered a truth too powerful to ever forget. Eventually, Maya pulled into the underground lot of her cousin's apartment building. They rushed inside, dripping rainwater, adrenaline still sharp in their veins. The apartment was small but warm, a modest place filled with photos, plants, and the smell of lemon-scented cleaner. It felt grounded. Human. Real. Maya locked the door behind them. Sit, she said. We need to plan. Breanna dropped her bag on the couch and sat slowly, her hands trembling. She felt drained, yet something in her eyes had changed. A quiet fire had taken root there. Maya sat beside her, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "Tell me everything," she whispered. Breanna opened her bag and pulled out the laptop. Her voice shook as she explained the photos, the memo plotting her removal, the voice note of Crane giving orders, the officers pounding at her door. The words poured out of her like water breaking through a cracked dam. "When I heard them trying to break in, I thought," her voice faltered. "I thought I wasn't going to make it out." Maya placed a steady hand over hers. "You're here. You made it. That means you still have a chance to fight back." Breanna took a shaky breath. "I want to, but how? Crane has the police. He has lawyers. He has politicians. People believe him just because his name carries money. That's exactly why you can beat him." Breanna blinked, confused. Maya leaned forward. "People with power get careless. They believe they're untouchable, so they don't hide their sins well enough. We have proof, Bree. And we have your voice. Together, that's more dangerous than anything he expected." Breanna swallowed hard. "We need more than proof. We need people to see it." Maya's eyes brightened. "Then let's make them see it." They spent the rest of the night working in silence, gathering, organizing, backing up the files in 3 separate drives, drafting statements, highlighting timestamps, cross-referencing dates. Every detail mattered. Every detail could be the difference between victory and destruction. By dawn they had a plan. And by afternoon they were ready to execute it. Breanna had always known that justice moved slowly, especially for people like her. But she also knew that sometimes justice needed to be pushed, loudly, publicly, relentlessly. She booked a meeting with Councilwoman Avery Moore, one of the few city leaders who actually fought for marginalized communities. Getting an appointment would normally take weeks, but Breanna's trembling voice and coded message, "I have information on Crane's misappropriated donations," had earned her a same-day sit-down. Maya drove them to City Hall, both women quiet and tense. As Breanna stepped inside, she felt the weight of invisible eyes on her. People rushed past with purpose while she felt as if she were moving through thick mud. Every hallway echoed too loudly. Every security guard stared too long. But Breanna didn't turn back. In Councilwoman Moore's office, sunlight streamed through wide windows and fell across stacks of legal documents. The woman behind the desk looked up, her expression sharp with concern. "Miss Cole," she greeted, standing to shake her hand. "Your call sounded urgent. Tell me what you found." Breanna took a deep breath and opened her laptop. The moment the images filled the screen, Councilwoman Moore's eyebrows rose. Her lips tightened. She leaned closer, scrolling through each photo carefully, her eyes flickering between disbelief and anger. "How long has this been happening?" she demanded. "I don't know," Breanna whispered. "But they tried to destroy evidence. And last night they tried to set me up." Councilwoman Moore sat back, stunned. For a moment the room felt painfully silent. Then she stood. "We are going to expose him." Breanna exhaled shakily. "How?" "Legally. Publicly. And in a way he cannot escape." She paced around her desk. "We need to bring this before the city's ethics committee, the state auditors, the press, and documented community witnesses. And we need to make sure your testimony is protected." Breanna felt her heart pounding. "Will they believe me?" Councilwoman Moore stopped pacing and met her eyes directly. "They will believe the truth. Especially when it screams louder than his lies." 2 days later, the city held an emergency public hearing. A crowd gathered outside City Hall, buzzing with tension. Activists held signs demanding transparency. Opponents whispered that Crane was being framed. Reporters swarmed the entrance, microphones flashing like restless fireflies. Inside, Breanna sat in the front row, palms sweating, heart hammering against her ribs. Maya squeezed her hand tightly. "You're ready?" Maya whispered. Breanna nodded, though fear curled up beneath her ribs like a living thing. Council members filed in. Cameras switched on. People murmured behind her. Then the doors opened and Mr. Crane himself walked in. He wore a perfectly tailored navy suit and the same polished smile she had seen him use during charity galas. The same smile he used when pretending to care. His eyes landed on her briefly, the smile tightening, not warm, not polite, but calculating. Breanna's stomach twisted. His lawyer leaned down and whispered something in his ear. Crane's smirk deepened. Councilwoman Moore stepped to the microphone. "This meeting will address allegations of large-scale donation fraud, evidence tampering, and retaliation against an employee who attempted to report internal misconduct. Ms. Breanna Cole, please step forward." Breanna's knees shook as she stood, but her steps were steady. The room sharpened into clarity, the wood paneling, the murmuring crowd, the cameras capturing every breath she took. She reached the microphone. "State your name for the record," the clerk said. "My name is Breanna Cole," she replied, her voice trembling at first but growing steadier with each word. "Proceed, Doc." Breanna opened her folder and began to speak. She told them everything, not with anger but with the painful honesty of a woman who had endured humiliation, fear, betrayal, and injustice. She described the misappropriated donations, the disturbing memo planning her removal, the night officers tried to break into her home. She played the voice note of Crane's command to handle her. Gasps rippled across the room. Council members leaned forward. Cameras zoomed in. Crane shook his head with exaggerated disbelief, whispering aggressively to his attorney. Breanna continued, her voice growing firmer, stronger, sharper. "I was targeted because I refused to stay silent," she said. "I was threatened because I saw too much. And I survived because I refused to let fear decide my future." Her voice cracked, but she did not stop. "This city deserves leaders who serve the people, not men who steal from charity while parading themselves as saviors. You deserve better. Our communities deserve better. And I will not be silent anymore." When she finished, silence swallowed the room whole. Councilwoman Moore stood. "The committee will now view the submitted evidence." Screens lit up behind them, displaying photo after photo, memo after memo, timeline after timeline. Murmurs grew louder. Some people covered their mouths. Others stared furious. Crane finally rose, slamming his hands on the table. "This is fabricated," he barked. "She's lying. She's trying to ruin me because she wants my position." Breanna felt a flicker of fear, but it vanished the moment Councilwoman Moore turned toward Crane with ice in her voice. "We already traced the digital signatures," she said. "And every file leads back to your office." Crane's face blanched. His lawyer tugged his sleeve, whispering frantically. The council members began voting. One by one. Each aye struck the room like a hammer. Misappropriation confirmed. Retaliation confirmed. Crane suspended indefinitely. Criminal investigation opened. When the final vote was cast, the vote to hand the evidence to state prosecutors, the entire room erupted. Reporters shouted questions. Activists cheered. Cameras flashed. Crane was escorted out, red-faced, shouting back at the crowd. And Breanna? She stood still, breathing, shaking, alive. Maya rushed to her, pulling her into a tight embrace. Breanna hugged her back, tears finally spilling. "You did it," Maya whispered. "We did it," Breanna corrected, her voice soft but powerful. Councilwoman Moore approached them. "You're not just brave," she said. "You are the reason justice moved today." Breanna glanced around the room, at the crowd buzzing with emotion, the people recording everything, the reporters speaking rapidly into cameras. For the first time, the weight on her shoulders felt lighter. She had not been defeated. She had not been silenced. She had not been erased. She had risen. That evening, as the city digested the scandal and the news cycle exploded with revelations, Breanna walked outside into the cool night air. The sky was clearing. The rain had washed the streets clean, leaving the world smelling like damp concrete and possibility. Maya stood beside her. "What now?" Maya asked. Breanna inhaled deeply. "Now I heal," she said. "And then I help others do the same." Maya nodded proudly. "You know, this story is going to travel far," she said. "People need to hear it." Breanna looked ahead, her eyes steady. "Then let's make sure they do." If you enjoyed this story and believe more people need to hear it, make sure you like, share, and subscribe so others can join the conversation. Stories like this spark change, challenge injustice, and remind us that courage from just one person can expose the truth hiding in plain sight. Share your thoughts in the comments. Your voice matters here.